To please take your seats. Can I ask you to please take your seats? We're running out of beyond schedule. Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. We now moving on to the open session of the AGM, and welcome the Minister and his team for joining us. A very simple program really for this open session. I will start off with my address. I will then be followed by the newly appointed President, Mr. Paul Dunne, and then we will give time for the keynote speech for the day. And as often happens, technology fails me at the time that I need it the most. Okay. So good morning, ladies and gentlemen, and a warm welcome to the 135th Annual General Meeting of the Minerals Council South Africa. And a particular welcome and a thanks to you, Honourable Minister Mantashe, for joining us today as we reflect on the successes, the challenges, and opportunities that 2024 delivered for the Minerals Council and the mining industry. Also for the continued strive this year to position our industry for investment and growth. And this we need to enhance our contribution to the economy in order to be able to deliver the accompanying social benefits, which I'd like to believe consist of dignity and employment of our citizens. I extend a hearty congratulations to Paul Dunne, who has today was appointed as Minerals Council President after serving in a caretaker role since early in the year. Paul, we look forward to the continued collaboration with you and our team of office bearers who have all been reappointed for a second term. And I also welcome the reappointments of Themba Mkhwanazi, Richard Stewart, and Bumi Zigalala as Vice Presidents of the Minerals Council. Your advice, guidance, and support that I've enjoyed in the past term have really been invaluable during a very busy and interesting 2024-2025 term. And we look forward to continuing to work together in that spirit for this forthcoming term. And I should also thank the continued contribution of the members of the board, most of whom were re-elected for the new term. And I truly appreciate the time that you commit beyond your full-time roles as leaders in your companies to support and promote the South African mining industry. And also good wishes to those members who have retired. And so to kick off, I do foresee our industry continue to play its role as a good corporate citizen, a key industrial sector that makes an important contribution to the country and ensures that mining matters, both socially, but also economically and with environmental stewardship for our employees, our host communities, and greater society. The strength and sustainability of the South African mining industry lies in its diversity. Gold continues to shine despite its maturity, and the resilience of the PGMs and growth in the bulk commodities continue to uphold and add to the performance of the industry and have contributed to the country's GDP and to the performance to the country's GDP and social well-being in the year that was. Future growth is still required and remains a very, very strong desire, particularly in minerals that are necessary for a just energy transition. These minerals are also will be required for digital infrastructure, and as we've seen recently, defense applications. But most importantly, they will support the social and economic progress of the country. Our advocacy for enabling mining legislation in investment-friendly environment widely acknowledged. Viewing the Mineral Resources Development Bill, which was gazetted last week, our initial assessment is that whilst there are some positive proposed changes, overall the proposed amendments will not help us contribute to the apex priority of economic growth and job creation as established by the President Cyril Ramaphosa in his SONA speech post the formation of GNU. Therefore, we will robustly engage the minister and his team to provide our inputs. We do have a vested interest in contributing to a market and investor-friendly legislation that stimulates positive sentiment that will lead to investment and growth of the South African mining industry. I remain convinced of mining being a catalyst and a partner for economic development and social progress. Our industry lives this vision by leveraging its financial and intellectual resources and capability to co-invest and collaborate with our social partners, especially local municipalities, to uplift communities through investments in education, in health, enterprise development, and infrastructure, just to mention a few. The multiplier effects of a mining industry that performs according to its potential, firstly, in the social terms, of employment creation and household support, and secondly, economically, in terms of downstream beneficiation, manufacturing stimulus, these remain uncontested. Our latest report on inclusive procurement and enterprise and supply development is evidence to why mining matters. On inclusive procurement, for example, the surveyed members' total procurement spend in 2023 amounted to 272 billion rands, with 122 billion of that, 45%, spent on mining goods and the balance on services. In the same year, a total of 1.8 billion rands was invested in enterprise and supply development initiatives by the 85 mining right holders that were surveyed. Last year, I said the focus of the Minerals Council will be to shift the narrative from the mining industry from potential to performance and growth. And that remains our focus for this year. Although the level of industry activity remains below par, it has been encouraging to witness the stabilization in production of bulk commodities attributable to Transnet and to an extent Eskom's improvement. However, there's still some long tracks to cover, to coin a metaphor. We tirelessly advocate for the development of a shared vision, being a globally competitive mining industry that materially contributes to South Africa's economy and benefits all stakeholders. The Government of National Unity offers an unprecedented opportunity to rejuvenate economic growth, driven by a unified vision of a prosperous South Africa. The multi-party nature of the government means there is now far greater political accountability and transparency. Without a doubt, this creates a far noisier democracy, but the upside is much more robust, responsive government with a broader mandate to make the changes our country needs to urgently address our economic malaise, expand job opportunities, and arrest the emergent social decay. The desire to grow the industry is driven by the basic objective of fulfilling the basic necessities of a life that is comfortable, happy, healthy, and secure. Overlaying our internal politics is the profound disruption to the global economy under a volatile tariff war, the wars in Ukraine and the Middle East, and uncertainty about traditional alliances and trading partners. This presents an opportunity for South Africa's mining industry and the economy to lead on the African continent as we explore cross-border and Southern African prospects to unlock the full potential of regional, mineral, and manufacturing sectors and drive the development of the continent. While foreign investments are critical to unlock our mineral wealth, inter-African collaboration and cooperation are vital for us to play a more substantial role in the global minerals value chain. And so as we look to the year ahead, Minerals Council has set 5 outcomes that we aim to achieve within the context of our strategic priorities. The first one, to strengthen our climate response and advance a just energy transition by driving responsible mining practices and reducing carbon emissions. This includes establishing an aggregate view of the strength of our members' climate response strategies in terms of mitigation and adaptation, as well as efforts on a just transition. Secondly, our advocacy will be enhanced through a data-driven approach and building on our culture of data are us. And this will be in our approach to policy engagement, ensuring that our positions are backed by clear evidence of mining's impact on the economy and society. The third, will accelerate investment promotion by leveraging transformative policy reforms and global events such as the G20 and B20 to showcase South Africa as a destination for responsible mining investment. Fourth, we also plan to further contribute towards improving infrastructure efficiency in logistics and energy to remove barriers that hinder the sector's growth. We are already working with provincial, district, and local governments on water infrastructure, and several of our members are involved in collaborative efforts on municipal capacity building, which are 2 key initiatives incorporated in Operation Vulindlela 2.0. And the fifth one, transformation beyond compliance. This is our outlook, aiming to ride on a growing mining industry and opening economic and development opportunities for a more inclusive and representative industry. South Africa's diversified minerals endowment offers uncontested exploration and mining growth potential for minerals that are critical for, firstly, infrastructure and manufacturing development of the country, and secondly, to enable the just energy transition to a low-carbon future. The industry has significant growth potential that can change our fate and fortunes and transition the country into prosperity for decades. I'd like to end by saying the future of South African mining requires bold action from both government and the private sector. By championing transformative reforms and advocating for investment and embracing innovation, we can unlock a new era of growth and wealth creation. In his inaugural speech on the 19th of June 2024, President Ramaphosa said, "The voters of South Africa, they want a transformed, growing and inclusive economy that creates jobs for millions of job seekers and offer business opportunities to all entrepreneurs in our nation, women and men, young and old." Therefore, I say, the mining industry stands ready to invest, create jobs, and drive economic growth. What we need is an all-of-government commitment to removing barriers to encourage investment in exploration, mine development, as well as existing operations. The solutions are clear. Create a globally competitive regulatory environment, implement a modern and transparent mining cadastre, and we were happy to hear the progress on that yesterday at the June Indaba. streamline regulatory processes, and coordinate between government departments to create a one-stop shop for mining, remove infrastructure bottlenecks, and jointly lead a shared vision for mining's future. And so with that, what remains for me is to thank several members of our executive who have chosen to retire. And so on behalf of the board and all of our employees, I want to thank in his absence, Mr. Nix Lesufi, who retired after 22 years with the Minerals Council, and Ms. Faye Cotta, who has also opted for retirement. Both of our colleagues left an indelible mark on our organization and the industry. We wish them well in the next phase of their lives. We also said goodbye to Lee McMaster, our principal specialist on safety and behavior, who joined one of our member companies. He just carefully redeployed him, as we like to say. Lee was with the Minerals Council for 10 years and was a key member of our safety team. I'd also like to thank, in his absence, he was here earlier, Mr. Harry Groenewald and Mr. Motsamai Mutlame, both of whom retire at the end of this month, thus marking their last board and AGM. Harry has served our organization for over 18 years as Senior Executive for Finance, HR, and Administration. And Motsamai has been with the organization for 15 years, and in the recent past as Head of Department for Employee Relations. Please join me in wishing Harry and Motsamai a wonderful retirement. And with that, we welcome Mrs. Tima Norki, who succeeds Harry, and Mrs. Shamini Harrington, who has succeeded Nix. Thank you very much for listening, and I'd now like to invite Paul Dunne to come and give us his address. Thank you.
Thank you, Mzila. Excuse me. Good morning, everyone. Good morning. I would like to extend a warm welcome also to you, Honourable Minister of Mineral and Petroleum Resources, Minister Gwede Mantashe. I'd also like to welcome our board members, fellow CEOs, and the media to this 135th Annual General Meeting. As we reflect on the past year, it is evident that South Africa's mining industry remains a cornerstone of economic stability, despite formidable challenges. The sector continues to play a pivotal role in job creation, foreign exchange earnings, and industrial development, reinforcing its position as a vital contributor to the country's economic and social fabric. Despite this, our contribution to the country's GDP has declined over the years. And this is not due to lack of potential, but rather the result of structural ranging from regulatory uncertainty to infrastructure constraints. The mining industry employed nearly 475,000 people in 2024. And employee earnings increased by 9 billion rand to 191 billion rand, contributing positively to the lives and livelihoods of our employees and their extended families, and also the communities in which they live. The economic multiplier effect of mining is immense. And each job in mining, as you know, has a very high dependency ratio. However, the industry is undoubtedly going through a difficult time. Company tax halved to 43.6 billion rand. Royalties shrank to 16 billion rand from 25 the previous year. And the industry's contribution to GDP is now 6.1% from 6.3% in 2023. Mining in South Africa has always been about resilience, innovation, and in particular, its people. We are a very people-centric undertaking. We operate in some of the most demanding and complex mining conditions in the world. Our members aim to manage sustainable mining in the world's deepest mines beneath the surface, whilst navigating complex regulatory and policy environments above ground, and contending with the influence of global economic dynamics on mineral and commodity prices. In a spirit of shared commitment to contributing to the success of South Africa, we continue to adapt, invest, and find solutions that enable us to sustain this important sector. Several critical challenges characterized 2024, requiring decisive leadership and strong collaboration with government, regulators, and other stakeholders. One of the most pressing concerns earlier in the year has been illegal mining, a challenge that has escalated into an organized criminal enterprise, threatening lives, threatening legitimate mining operations, and threatening the stability of the surrounding communities. The Minerals Council has engaged extensively with government, particularly the security cluster and our own department. We have supported interventions to improve enforcement, enhance security measures, and protect South Africa's mineral wealth from exploitation by criminal syndicates. Of equal concern has been the impact of infrastructure constraints, particularly in respect of electricity and rail logistics. Through consistent engagement with Eskom at the highest level, with government, and with the National Energy Crisis Committee, we have played a critical role in driving policy changes that have allowed mining companies to invest in self-generation and alternative energy sources. This is an important step towards securing energy independence for the sector. On the logistics front, inefficiencies at Transnet have severely impacted our ability to move bulk commodities to global markets. The Minerals Council has been at the forefront of advocating reforms, working again with government and industry partners to accelerate much-needed improvements in rail and port capacity. The leadership changes in 2023 and 2024 at Transnet signaled a shift towards a more accountable and results-driven approach. While progress has been slow, we are beginning to see incremental improvements in both operational efficiencies and volume. And we intend to continue to advocate for the acceleration of resolutions to these critical challenges that we face. As I've said, as a people-centric industry, our commitment to safety and responsible mining has never been stronger. The mining industry has made significant strides in improving health and safety outcomes, with both fatalities and serious injuries continuing to decline. This is thanks to the collective efforts of industry leadership, government, and labor. A defining moment in 2024 was the signature of health and safety milestones for the next 10 years, reaffirming our commitment to ensuring that every worker returns home safely. Environmental sustainability remains a critical focus area. And as the world shifts to a low-carbon economy, South Africa's mining sector is at the heart of this transition. And it is imperative that the just transition is managed pragmatically, balancing climate ambition with economic reality. We must ensure that policy decisions do not undermine energy security, industrial competitiveness, and job security, a stance that the Minerals Council continues to advocate in its engagements with policymakers. Transformation is not a compliance exercise in mining, as Mzila pointed out. It's a business imperative. We acknowledge the strides that the companies have made in increasing female representation in the workforce, now approaching 19%, in the context of the fact that women were legislated out of the underground workforce as early ago as the 90s. On a broad-based basis, mining is one of the most transformed, if not the most transformed, sector of business. Through social and labor initiatives, social SLP, social and labor plan initiatives, mining companies continue to invest in education, in healthcare, in roads, water, sewage, supporting the development of our communities to enable them to be more self-sustaining. The Minerals Council remains committed to working with government and other stakeholders to scale these efforts and maximize social impact. Many of the challenges and successes of our industry, some of which I've talked about just now, are well known and have been extensively reported on in our media. Although I would like to suggest that many positive human stories from our wonderful industry remain known only to those of us inside. This, by the way, is our failing, not the media. For today, however, I need to raise two extremely important issues which we believe will dominate the coming year. Firstly, the cost of power and the associated annual escalation. For any country to be competitive, the cost of electrical energy is fundamental. Recently, we've once again experienced annual increases in the mid-double digits. This has been brought about by a combination of the NERSA determination, the 12.7%, compounded by additional charges in the tariff structure. Effectively, these cumulative and compounding increases are putting our beneficiation processes to the sword and threatening the future of the remaining large shaft systems. We perceive this as price gouging to the detriment of our economic base, and continued increases of this nature can never be a solution to Eskom's woes. It is also a sure way to damage Eskom's future business potential. Council will engage Eskom through the Energy Intensive Users Group to firstly understand why this has happened again, given that the grid has stabilized, and secondly, determine what needs to be done to protect our industry. The second item I need to speak about is employment and the link to investment. Unemployment and the lack of economic opportunity inflict a terrible pain and cost to society. Some would say the greatest of all economic evils. Our sector needs to be prioritized from a policy point of view, such that South Africa remains an attractive destination for investment and exploration with a distinct link to job creation and job preservation. Excuse me. We cannot control global commodity prices, but we can invest through the cycle if, and only if, the right policies and investment climate are in place. These policy levers, broadly speaking, lie with government. When we examine the recently published Mineral Resources Development Bill, we ask ourselves two questions. Does this contribute to an improved investment climate? And secondly, is this employment positive? Our considered view and our considered answers to both these questions is no, it does not. And therefore, as it stands, cannot go unchallenged. It is not my intention to sandbag the minister with a long list of technical and substantive reasons as to why the bill is very problematic in its current form. Today is not the correct forum. The Minerals Council is a strong and professional advocacy group representing virtually the entire mining industry. We will respond formally through the public consultative process and beyond, should that be required. And our detailed responses will be made public at the appropriate time. On behalf of the board, I would also like to thank our vice presidents, Themba, Richard, and Mpumi, who provided invaluable support and guidance during 2024. I look forward to working with you all again in 25, and I will continue to strive for the best possible outcomes for our industry, our employees, our communities, and the economy. Mzila has served now 2 full terms at helm of council as CEO, leading a complex industry, and he's done that with distinction. Finally, I wish to acknowledge the unwavering commitment of our mining companies, industry leaders, and employees, the men and women who make this sector what it is. Their dedication, skill, and resilience ensure that mining continues to be a pillar of South Africa's economic and social landscape. Finally, I would like to say the structure of our economy is such that mining must succeed in order for South Africa to succeed. Thank you. I will now call upon our Honourable Minister, Minister Gwede Mantashe.
Thank you very much, Paul. I don't know who the program director is. Yeah. The president of the Mineral Council. Paul, I wrote you as acting president. Now, as we're sitting there, we're told that you've been elected president, not appointed, elected president. We scratched the acting and written the president of the Mineral Council, South Africa. The CEO, Mzila Mthenjane, members of the board and executive of the Mineral Council, leaders of the mining industry, all of you, the team that accompanied me to be here. I'm sure you listen very carefully to these 2 inputs. They summarize the proceedings of the closed session. Distinguished guests and members of the media. Let me start off by outlining that this is quite an important industry. I love it. I must declare that publicly. I know its characteristics. It is very abusive, but very addictive. The more it abuses you, the more you want to go back. That is mining for you. And I'm sure I can get few witnesses here who have been abused by the industry but continued going back there. It's the nature of mining. You know, today is the day for the cabinet meeting in Cape Town. I had to go to the president as an outgoing acting president. And explain to the president that I must be here because a very important sector is meeting. I want to be there and hear them out so that as we move forward, our plans must talk to the needs of the industry. I was allowed to come here, so I've missed the cabinet. Since the start of the term in this ministry, we have constantly participated in AGMs of the industry. Not because we have nothing to do, but because we cherish the relationship that we have with the industry. And we understand the value of partnership in the success of the mining industry. which has been mired with trials and trumps. It's not a straight line. The curve of the industry has highs and lows. And that is what mining is all about. When you register lows, you get big headlines, and they're called failures. When you touch the ups, nobody writes about that. Again, we accept that that is how the industry is, and it must keep on keeping on. Now, it's very important for the industry to understand its own history. Because if the industry, as it becomes younger and younger in generations, forgets its history, it is going to commit and repeat the same mistakes that were committed before. I took time to look into the history of the mining. I said this industry was dominated by Anglo-American, Anglophile, JCI, Janko, Rand mines, coal fields. And that was the mining industry. And when people don't see those principal owners of the industry, they make a different conclusion that the industry is in decline. Industry is dying almost because you don't go and see Anglo in its old form. There's no Anglo gold here. There's no Anglo coal. Industry is becoming smaller and smaller, and it is divesting and decentralizing in many areas. And we say Anglo is finished. My understanding is different, is that Anglo has to adopt a particular strategy to protect itself from the offensive of PHP. It had to. It had to. If you didn't do that, you would be vulnerable in the constant attacks that were there. And I'm going to talk a little bit about something called BEE, which seems to be a big issue for the mining industry. But before you talk about that, you must go back a little bit and say, in 1948, the Nationalist Party took over political control of the country. It had to have an agreement with the British to coexist, live and let live. That's how I describe it. It's live and let live. And in that arrangement, Afrikaner capital was given Union Corporation and General Mining, relatively old mining conglomerates given to them to survive. That was the actual origin of Jango Capital. And people tend to forget that and think that it's the same. There's no, and therefore, when the black South Africans take over political control, they think that there should be no intervention. It was enough for the Afrikaner, it's not necessary for the blacks. And this industry, which was the passion of apartheid, this industry, must internalize that and correct it. I came to the industry very young. I'm 70 this year, for your information. I know I look younger. And no, I'm not young, I'm just handsome. And that's a big difference. Being handsome and being young are two different things. I'm 70 this year. I'm 5 days older than the Freedom Charter. And next month is my celebration, 5 days before the celebration of the Freedom Charter will be my 70th anniversary. So I know the industry. When we couldn't put our hands on a blasting certificate with matric, it was not an accident of history, it was by law. It was reserved for a scheduled person. And the scheduled person was a white male. That's what it was. And you would be a beginning with matric to a minor with standard 1 and standard 2. And this industry must appreciate the responsibility it is having to correct that history. So when we talk about BE, whether it is inhibiting or is it a facilitating activity, the industry must have that background to address. I'm making this point because in the industry, there is temptation to always associate affirming people with cadre deployment. No, I was talking to my committee in Parliament one day. I said to them, listen, cadre deployment, what is this thing called cadre deployment? Now, I worked in the mine when the DG had matric, but he was a white male. And therefore, there was no discussion about that. He qualified. I'm sitting today with a DG who is having an engineering degree and an MPA. Is cadre deployment. And this industry must actually do an analysis that will help us out of this false discussion. I call it a false discussion because is it BEE that is chasing investment, or is it over concentration of the ownership of the means of production? Because those are the two areas that we must analyze as an industry. Is it BEE that is chasing away investment, or is it over concentration of the ownership of the means of production? Which we're not changing. That's why I gave you that list: Anglo-American, Anglophile, JCI, Genco, Rand Mines, Goldfields. You see, that captured over concentration of the means of production. And one of my colleagues, I think is the shadow minister of the DA for mining, said to me, this PE of yours is chasing investment away. I said to him, yes, maybe you are right, maybe. Because when new conglomerates emerge, you won't see them because they are black. And I gave them an example. I said, listen, you know, there's something called Seriti here. It's a small entity. It's a small entity. But that entity is the biggest coal producer in the country. But you can't see it because it is black. That is BEE and concentration of the means of production. A week ago, a company called Exaro takes over Tshipi manganese. And they say to me, we're buying Tshipi, and I say it's not buying, it's consolidation. I gave it a term. So it's consolidation. You are consolidating, you are forming another conglomerate, which will be dominant in coal. All of a sudden, it will have a big entrance into manganese. It's not visible, it is black. That is the debate this industry must have openly and transparently, rather than shadow boxing on these issues. These are principal issues that we must deal with. How do we integrate the growth of black capital and the flourishing of the mining industry? Because if we don't have that discussion, we're going to be pretending to each other. And we're going to have false discussions. We're going to have false discussions, you see. Now, that is quite an important question that this industry must answer openly and transparently. Now, when we talk of the revision of the MPRDA, I'm listening very carefully what is said. It doesn't reflect the Mineral Council's input and so on. I don't know about that. I'm not drafting, I'm listening. You know, when the industry says that publicly, I start briefing lawyers. because I know that the industry is going to take us to court. I know that. One time we had a discussion here, again, another false discussion of once empowered, always empowered. We had that discussion. We ended up in court. The industry celebrated. We have won the case and so forth. I said it's a false victory because empowerment, to me, I don't know to other people, is production of black capitalists in the system. If we don't produce black capitalists and we talk of empowerment, false description. I want to count them. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. They come out of the system. This system is empowering blacks who were deprived right to participate in the economy. Now they have got that right. Out of acquiring of that right, here are the black capitalists that emerge. It's not it. You know, Anglo, I always tell them, when they want something to happen, it does happen. Because they facilitate that it happens. And other mining houses must be able to do so. Anglo created ARM. I'm sure the CEO of ARM will not like that. But because of my age, I have a right to say it. That, you know, ARM, Patrice, was a contractor underground in Vaal Reefs doing sweeping and vamping in Vaal Reefs. He's given 7 shafts, say, work on this shaft. If you take them over, we'll give them to you. That coincides with the record price of gold. And he runs those 7 shafts and complete paying them to Anglo in record time. A baby is born, Kamala is called African Rainbow Minerals. Today is a big entity. And they run to the Free State. They fight with Hammond, which was belonging to Rand Mines, as if there's no tomorrow. I was a trade unionist at the time. We called them because we're quite a powerful union. There was no discussion in the industry without us. We called them, say, come here. Listen, guys, merge your interest. I said to Patrice, don't fight. These Africans who are in harmony are not going to run away. They're not going to go anywhere. They're here, and you are here. Merge. They merge. They form Harmony Gold Mine. And Harmony at the time was said to be left with 3 months' life until fixers took an interest in it and developed it into the biggest gold producer in the country. And I always give that credit to Bernard Swanepoel. You see, I always give that credit to him because they were young engineers. They came together, work on this thing that had 3 months' life, and they put their skin on the fire and built a massive gold producing company called Hammond. When they met with ARM Gold, they formed a big gold mining company. They took Anglophile operations in Lorraine to form Harmony Gold. The rest is history, Tobias. The rest is history. I'm going to these details to remind this industry that development of capital in the industry is in a state of becoming. It is evolving. It is not stagnant. What happened to Union Corporation and General Mining, that from Django Capital? That Afrikaner capital was tested and listed in London, handed over to BHP Billiton as an incentive, took Brian Gilbert and made him a CEO. After 6 months, they fired him. Brian Gilbertson. And I can tell you that mathematician from Rhodes cannot be a useless CEO. I know. If he is fired because he's useless, I know that that cannot be true. It's half the story. They must tell us the real story. They fired Brian Gilbertson after 6 months in BHP Billiton. They absorbed the African capital into them. We have nothing to show for it. That was my concern when BHP wanted to take over Anglo. I'm telling Anglo people, you must know this. I raised the issue and made a big negative noise about it. And I was called in government and told that you can't be this negative. I said, on this area, I should be the spoiler. You as government must sugarcoat it. It's not for me to sugarcoat it. I must say it. You took our money, called Billiton, which is African capital. We have nothing to show for it. That's us. Now, it is quite important, therefore, to appreciate the fact that the revision of the MPRDA is a discussion that is open. Raise your issues. Paul, you don't make subtle threats. Because of experience with mining. When mining makes subtle threats, prepare briefing your lawyers. They will take you to court. Talk to us. Want to revise that, but we're not going to remove provision for Black economic empowerment in the Act. We're not going to do that because a Black capital is actually. I'm going to be coming to many of you as come and say, sponsor a writer to write a book on the emergence of Black capital formations post-independence. Okay. You know why is that important? It's because when I read about capital emergence, I'm told about Afrikaner capital emergence. I read that, I understand it back and forth, but this one is not written about. We must get an author to write it, publish it, and it must be in the bookshelves and we read about it. Okay, so in my other party called the Communist Party, they say, what kind of a socialist are you? Who talk about Black capital? They say, no, development is about growth and emergence of something new. If you are a leader of the sector, you don't produce multipliers, you are not a good leader. A leader worth the salt must produce other leaders and produce other multipliers. If you don't produce other multipliers, you're not going to be a good leader. For Black executives who emerge, I normally deal with them. Sometimes I get the sentence that they say to me, because we're intelligent, we're now executives and so forth. I say, no. You are a product of a process. I insist on that. And even if you produce a Mike Tech, who runs a big empire called Sereti, it's bigger than Pick and Pay, by the way. It's much bigger. It's bigger than Pick and Pay. You run that thing and you think that it's your own making. No, it's a product of the process and the system and the policy. And I refer people to Caris Anderson, young woman called Caris Anderson. He reminds all of us, Ugotia, intelligence is not enough. Okay, intelligence is not enough. If that intelligence is not based on commitment and determination, it will not give you the results. It can only give you the results if you have the intelligence, but you base it on your own commitment, your determination, and the desire. And your vision must be able to lead you to something new. You must create, not just create other multipliers. Now, I'm making this because I'm calling for a person to write the story of black capital formations post-independence. Because until we write that story, we'll always have a situation of the story of elephants written by hunters. Elephants must write their story and not leave their story to the hunters. Because when hunters write, even when a hunter is actually devoured, the explanation will be the hunter slipped and the elephant ran over him. But if the story, it will be told that the elephant fought back and actually destroyed the hunter. So our story must not be written by hunters. It must be written by the elephants themselves. Now, social and labor plans is an ongoing engagement with the industry. And we've made a principle there and said to them, listen, you hear this thing of SLPs, and we gave them a character. We say SLPs are not a compliance issue. If you think that you do SLPs to comply, go and sleep, go home. SLP is about changing the image of this industry. This industry must never be seen as being dirty, difficult, dangerous, and diseased. And it is characterized by leaving holes on the ground. This industry must have SLPs to create a feeling that it is part of society. When a mining company builds a school in a community where it is working, or in an area where there is labor standing, that mine relates to that community. When a company gives the police vehicles to fight crime, it's not a gift. It is an intervention to improve capacity to fight crime. And that mining company must be seen as such. When a mining company builds a clinic in a community, I still want a mining company to come to me and say, there's a clinic that is required somewhere in a place called Nkondlo in Nobo. A mining company must come to me and say, listen, we can build that clinic. It's a need. It will service 6 villages around it. I've not identified a mining company. I would expect volunteers. When a school is destroyed by weather in Piri village, somewhere in King Williamstown, in the end of nowhere, southern of the mining area, those are standing areas. You know, the Eastern Cape is known for one thing. It produces nothing, but it exports brains. That's all it does. It exports brains all over. And mining companies, because they receive these brains, they must build a clinic there and a school there. Yeah. See, I left home when I was 19. I'm 72. I've never gone back there because my brain was exported to the mining industry. And this industry owes Tala something for my brain. Now, so it is quite important, therefore, that the provision in the new act for artisanal and small-scale mining must be noticed by the mining industry and enhance that section. Because artisanal mining and small-scale mining talks to the nature of this industry. You know, these are major mining companies. And the only problem with big mining companies is that their work must fit their cost structure. And because it doesn't fit their cost structure, they leave marginal deposits in the ground. And mine workers know that marginal deposits have been left there, they come back as illegal miners. So the promotion of artisanal mining and small-scale mining is imperative on the mining industry to enhance that section, so that we go back and deal with those marginal deposits that are left there. If we don't do that, we are not fulfilling our obligation. That goes to the question of beneficiation. Well, I took the question of electricity. We're having an ongoing discussion in government about that. We said the cost of electricity make our mining industry uncompetitive. Okay. We took chrome. Chrome has been decimated by China, which built a chrome industry on the back of our own chrome deposit. They have no chrome deposits. They take our chrome, they stockpile, they become a big chrome industry. And when it matters most, they flood the sector, the price collapses. Yeah? Must have that discussion is actually beginning to take a good shape, that we must have a tariff that talks to the needs. Talk to us about it, throw your ideas, but I'm giving you feedback that we are ourselves discussing it. That's why Chinese will build smelters in Zimbabwe, Angola, around us, because in those areas, the electricity price gives competitive edge over us. And we must talk about that openly and not hide it. It's an invitation. I'm throwing it to the new executive that has been elected. I've brought here copies of the critical mineral strategy. I've left there. I've given it to the vice president. We can't give everything to the president. No. The vice president will have nothing to do. So I'm giving her the task. I gave them the strategy. Look at it. Give us feedback. We've been given a task by cabinet. Say, this is good, but please write up a context. We must talk to the history of the industry. How did we come to where we are? And develop an implementation strategy. Your views on that are required. But we're insisting. I must tell you, when there was a delegation to the US, there was something called critical minerals, something, which was given to that delegation. And I went back and said, you are ambushing the industry. Please take that thing out. I said to the delegation, take that thing out. If people have ideas about critical minerals, they must come to this sector. Us and you and labor. We are engaging on these issues. Don't write your own thing. I read that thing. The first sentence says, the South African mining industry must make Donald Trump's able to create, to make mining great again. Then I read that sentence, I underline it, and I say, it's the wrong starting point, it's wrong for us. Because we're insisting on value addition happening close to the point of production. And that talks to the contradiction of port to port, pit to port, as value addition close to the point of production. We're insisting on that. We're selling it to the continent, we're selling it to everybody else. So let's have a discussion on that. I'm giving it to you not as a gift, but as a trigger for that discussion. Now, one thing that is quite important before I sit down is mine health and safety. Mine health and safety. There's nothing as empowering as the partnership we've created in this area of work. It's one area where there is no conflict, we don't fight, we don't contest. We agree on working together on our zero harm campaign. Zero harm. Mine workers must go to work and come back alive. We all agree on that. We reduce the numbers. We have the lowest number of fatalities in just at 42 in 2024. We can improve on that. But there are worrying signs that we're looking at. So we looked at Harmony. Harmony raised quite a number of fatalities at the beginning of the year. And the diagnosis that we made to said there was a change of leadership. When there's a change of leadership, there's normally a change in culture. And that change in culture manifests in different ways. And one of those is unnecessary fatalities. And we met with them and had a discussion open on that. I can see that they've arrested it. That was a worrying sign. The second sign that worried us was what happened in Kloof when over 300 workers are entrapped in a cage underground in Kloof Gold Mine. It's a sign. Nobody was injured. There was no fatality, but that is a sign. And we tried to inquire what happened here. We discovered that that shaft is about to close within the next 6 months. Then we make an extrapolation of that. And we say, therefore, cost of maintenance is reduced, and the result is entrapment of mine workers. Okay, because the shaft is about to be closed, therefore we don't maintain it, and because we don't maintain it, it is a sore point in terms of our zero harm campaign. I'm still expecting Sibanye Stillwater to come back to me and say, no, the reality is as follows. But I do my own analysis, oh, it's going to close, and therefore you don't spend money on maintenance. Because you don't spend money on maintenance, you have unnecessary accidents. And I said to them, remember, the Vaal Reef disaster was a shaft disaster. It killed over 100 workers, I think 107 workers in one accident in a shaft. So the mining industry must appreciate that shaft must be maintained through and through. Otherwise, they pose a threat. Thank you very much. Then there's no doubt that value addition to our metals will position the country as a key player in cobalt critical mineral market. But we must not talk past each other with the industry. Critical minerals must change the reality of a rich mineral deposit continent, but a home for the poorest people in the world. We have an opportunity to change that reality, create value out of what we have. An increase in exploration and beneficiation becomes quite important. If we focus on those two, we'll add value to the industry. Let me extend my appreciation for your invitation to participate in this year's AGM, and appreciate that you invited me. Let me apologize up front if I've said things that you didn't want me to say. I am apologizing, but I can assure you that I will say them again. Thank you very much. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Minister, for your address. Quite a number of messages that you have delivered and left with us. And it's certainly not my intention to repeat those, but I think what is important and worth mentioning is certainly the invitation that you've extended to ourselves and the broader industry to engage with yourselves and other partners in the industry in order to build this industry to be what it is, to demonstrate its potential and to benefit the country. So we certainly will be organizing ourselves to engage both on the critical mineral strategy as well as the MPRDA. I can maybe invite anyone for questions. We do have members, and there are roving mics. I will also invite those online to see if they have any questions. Any questions, or should I pick somebody to ask a question? From Mining MX, David McKay.
Thanks very much. Question for the Minister. Is that we can do that? Hey?
Yep. Good.
Okay. Minister, it's David McKay. I mean, are there any particular points? I mean, when you invite public comment, how are we to interpret that from government's perspective? Would you be prepared to make substantive changes if the industry was able to argue them convincingly? And I'm referring to the MPRDA amendments.
Okay, we'll take 2 to 3 questions and then give the Minister an opportunity to respond.
I'm sorry. Hi, Ed Stoddard with the Daily Maverick. Just on that point, I guess it would be a question for you and for the Minister. I mean, it does seem that the Minerals Council has said its input was not considered in the draft bill. And I was just wondering, in terms of for both of you, I mean, it seems like we're going backwards again, and that the industry and the ministry are not talking to each other. I mean, I also understand, I mean, there is a government of national unity now. The ANC is not the only political game in town. And I understand that DA members only saw the draft bill on Thursday last week. So I just wonder, Minister, when you say that, you know, BEE is here to stay, you're not going to change that. I mean, are you wearing an ANC hat there or a GNU hat? Thanks.
Take one more. Okay, online, there's nothing. Oh, there's a question from.
Hello, everyone. I'm Dunne Faku from Business Times. I just wanted to understand from the Minerals Council exactly what are your concerns as the Minerals Council when it comes to this bill? And just going back to Mr. Dunne, is the council going to take the minister to court, or
Okay. Maybe I can start with the second question from Ed. So we actually have been in conversation with the DMPR team, and in the process of that engagement with them, they made it clear to us that they were not at a point where they could share the full wording of the amendments, the proposed amendments, but they certainly shared with us what they were thinking in terms of key issues. Secondly, in that they were in a process of engaging with several stakeholders, including ourselves. And so my take from that is that I guess what the bill represents currently is a reflection of what they've received from all their stakeholders, and they've kind of put it out there. So this is the expectation of all the stakeholders to the mining industry through the bill, where each of the stakeholders weren't engaging as a collective. And so I think now we've got an opportunity to see perhaps and infer what other stakeholders are expecting. And I think what my expectation, and I think your question perhaps aligns with my thinking, that I would have expected, from my perspective, from an industry, a bill that demonstrates initially and proactively what industry would like to see. But I guess this is the bill that is displaying the expectations of society and stakeholders. And we're now, as the minister saying, being invited to try and go through a process of, I can say, filtering in terms of what then will make for an investor-friendly bill, where I think we all accept what the key trade-offs will need to make amongst each other stakeholders in order to get a bill that is suitable for investing in the country and stimulating growth.
Let me give an answer to the second question, Ed. I was worried that you didn't raise your hand originally. I said, Ed, in the meeting, not raising a question, what has gone wrong? Now, let me explain this thing of the GNU. It seems to excite a certain section of society, that there's a GNU, therefore it's not the ANC alone that is there. And if you analyze those comments, where do they come from? You can be forgiven for thinking that it's a racial issue. And we must deal with it because racism is beginning to raise its head in South Africa in many forms. And the argument that it is not on the ANC, when the DA says that, you can believe that the majority has moved from the ANC to the DA, and ignore the fact that the DA is half the size of the ANC in terms of electoral support. The ANC is 40%, it's not a majority party, but it's quite a major party. The BEE policy is not an ANC policy, it's a transformation policy for society. Every black person, whether it's a business person or a politician or a civil servant, or civil society, that black person knows that he was not allowed to participate in the economy of the country by law. And BEE opens up space for black South Africans to participate in the economy. And my argument is that we can't be apologetic about that. That we want an opportunity to participate in the economy and do certain things ourselves. I always tell people when I talk to them that I'm born of a mother who was never at school a single day, umama. Was never at school a single day. But that woman took a decision, a very fundamental, but he wants us to have matric, you know. And he sold maize, sold eggs, sold chicken and everything to ensure that we got matric. And I take pride of that. And I got my matric, I go to the mines. I can't be a miner because of the color of my skin. And we fight for 21 days for that right to accrue to black South Africans in 1987, Ed. I'm just reminding you, you were around at that time. 21 days that shook the chamber in 1987. One of the rights we acquired was the right of a blasting certificate accruing to a black person. And the second one was employment of women. Today we have a black female CEO in one of the major companies. Before 1987, women were not employed in the industry. And we can't be apologetic that and say it's an ANC policy. It's not an ANC policy to empower black people. It's a societal policy. It's a societal policy. It doesn't matter which area of work are you. You must appreciate that when you have executives that are black here, it's not sheer luck. It's policy intervention to give them an opportunity to run a mine, you know? So please never put the BEE as share and ANC policy, and then we must ask the DA. The DA will hate it because it represents white interests. And we have no problem that we have a GNU, which is a coalition of contending forces. We're contending. We don't agree in policy issues, but we must make the country work, make the government stable together, and disagree when we talk, but make the country state. I'm sure I can tell you, if you can go to the day and say, should we expel all the blacks and revert back to white dominance and concentration? They'll say, no, 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 no. But in articulation, they will be having an issue about black empowerment. And I can tell you, I am not apologetic about BEE. I'm giving you this history of my mother, that if it was not for the ANC policy, I wouldn't be having 40 degrees today. And the ANC created space for me, and then I studied. I used that on my own. And everyone here, when Mike Tegelwa, who ran into crisis rate, why HR Transnatal? Sim Telela, Ingwen Transnatal, Sim Telela, man, the HR today is running a major company that is black empowerment. That gives them capacity to do certain things. And we must never, never be apologetic about that. It's not about removing whites and replace them with blacks. It's about creating space for all of us to coexist and actually run the country and the economy together. That's why I gave you the example of two CEOs. One is a white male with matric. It's a good CEO. It's a good teacher. One is an engineer with MPA, is cater deployment. That is basically racism, nothing more, nothing less. You can give it any other characteristic.
Thank you, Minister.
Now the public comments is a policy. Every affected party has a right to comment when anything is open for public comments. If the Mineral Council thinks that their comments have not been taken into account, they have another opportunity to register their comments. And those comments will effect change, others will not, because we receive a whole range of comments that are taken into account. But some will be taken into account, others will fall off, and others were going to fight it out there. And that's why I'm saying, when the miracles were concerned, you prepare for a court case. Again, that's another opportunity and space for them to do that. You never regret that. You allow them to do that because our justice system must be independent of our political system. And to accept that unreservedly.
Well, I think the question from Dunne.
Yeah, thanks, Mzila. We must still, I think, allow the minister to have the very last word, but just in response to the third question, we've made it very clear that when we ask ourselves that question about does this bill promote investment and create jobs, we see it has some serious shortcomings. The nature of those shortcomings are both substantive in nature and technical. However, I also pointed out that today is not the day to go through those items because effectively we will sandbag the minister, and this is not the wrong venue, it's the wrong occasion. Council is a very considered professional advocacy body. We represent, once again, at least 99% of the mining industry in this country. And our submission will be made public when the right time comes. And we will engage very, very robustly with the department and the minister on this issue. The minister knows us very well. We're very tough. And Minister, we are coming.
I don't see any questions online. Are there any others on the floor? There's a question here.
Hello, hi. Minister, hi, it's Lisa from News 24. just want to, I mean, clearly you're sticking to your guns on economic empowerment. I just want to know how flexible you might be in the form it takes. Will it have to be the BEE codes of good governance? What happens to the mining charter? In terms of exploration activities, are you immovable there on empowerment for that? And then, sorry, slightly unrelated, but are we buying LNG from the US? And are we inviting them to help us frack in South Africa? Thank you.
I don't see any other hands, Minister. I think you can go ahead and respond.
Now, one thing that I have not explained is that now and in the future, there's no provision for BEE on exploration. Because exploration, you are looking for the quality and quantity of deposits. You are not creating value. So we are not expecting you to look for an equity partner for exploration. So major companies must remember that they must do more and more exploration themselves. We're not expecting you to have, but once you discover the quantity, you get into production, we want you to have a BEE partner. Help pull our people out of deprivation and they participate. Are we flexible on the matter? Well, flexible as we can be, but I can tell you that in the mining industry, when I'm a minister, I will not accept equity equivalence. I will not accept that. I will not accept equity equivalence in mining. I want the mining industry to produce visible and touchable capitalists. The advantage that I'm having in that Mzila, I don't have pains when I see a black man getting rich. I celebrate that. And that is what this industry must do. This industry has created many black millionaires. It must now create many black millionaires. Okay. And I'm not flexible with that. I want to see that it is not kicking out white capital. White capital, because it is established, must have a responsibility to pull blacks out of poverty and allow them to be in that space. That principle cannot be flexible. Otherwise, we'll not know what we're doing. That's it. In the US is the second biggest trading partner for South Africa, okay, after China. So we've not gone to the US to beg for them to come and invest. We'll welcome their investment as we'll welcome the investment of the East and everybody else. You know, many of the mining companies do business with US and the West, but there are quite a number of mining companies that do business with the East. And we want to discourage them and say, go to the West. No. If your business is doing well with the East, I like that. If you are doing well in the West and the US, continue. We are not going to create a situation where enemies of other people are made our enemies. Okay. We will have our own enemies and deal with our enemies. But we're not going to create artificial enemies because a friend has an enemy. We'll work with everybody. We'll work with the West, we'll work with the East. With a delegation to the US, you will not be shocked when you have a delegation to China. Okay? So we must do and deal with everybody and allow business to go where opportunities exist. If they're in the US, good luck, go there. If you want to pay tariffs, pay them. If you negotiate with them and say, please don't impose tariffs on us, and they agree, good luck to the business for no tariffs. And that's our role, to facilitate the relations. So we didn't go there to go and beg US to invest here and do all that. No. They are the second biggest investor, biggest trading partner, following Chinese, who are the biggest trading partner. We'll work with them. We have the EU, which is quite a massive business partner with us, and must continue with that.
Thank you very much for that response. I can smell the lunch for those that are on the floor. And I don't see any other hands. And to say thank you very much to the members for showing up for this AGM and the board before, to members of the media and other guests for showing your interest in us. And with that, let me say thank you. And not only this time next year, but certainly in between. And to the minister and your team, we thank you very much for gracing us with your presence, for your openness, and certainly for the invitations that you have extended to us. And we look forward to further engagements and a successful industry for all. Thank you very much. And thanks to everyone online for joining.